Have you ever felt someone's absence like a song that keeps playing inside your chest, even when the room is silent? Not because of the memories, but because something in you still echoes with what was never said, never finished, never undone. It's as if your soul is still holding a hand that isn't there, and yet, it doesn't feel like a wound. It feels like a whisper, a presence that never truly left. There's a kind of love that doesn't scream. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply is. It arrives quietly, and when it goes, it leaves a trail of silence that says, I was here, and I touched something in you that will never be the same. You know that kind of connection. It didn't ask your permission. It just entered, and now, no matter how many mornings come without his voice, something in you still listens. Louise reminds us, love is never outside ourselves. Love is within us. But what happens when another soul reaches into that inner place, and you feel, for the first time, that someone saw the part of you even you had forgotten? That kind of meeting is not about romance. It's about remembrance. A recognition that goes beyond the body, beyond words, beyond logic. A sense that we've been here before, and we will find each other again. If not in this lifetime, then in the quiet spaces between lifetimes. There's a sacred irony in real love. It teaches through presence, and it teaches through absence. Sometimes what opens your heart is not the man who stays, but the one who leaves, yet never truly lets go. He may be gone in form, but his soul, the way it touched yours, that remains, not as a longing, but as a seed, a lesson, a light. Maybe he awakened you to something you didn't know was sleeping, a softness, a strength, a mirror you were too afraid to look into. Maybe he showed you a version of yourself that you're still learning to become. And maybe, just maybe, his silence now is not rejection, but a pause, a space where the universe is still breathing, still weaving something greater than your mind can understand. This video is not about waiting. It's not about holding on to someone who chose to walk away. It's about honoring what was true, even in its impermanence. It's about understanding that soulmates are not always meant to stay, but they are always meant to transform, to remind you of who you are when you love from your essence, not your fear, when you give without losing yourself. Because sometimes, what the world calls the end is just the soul beginning to speak. There's a moment, often quiet and unnoticed by the world, when a woman sits alone after he's gone and realizes the ache she carries isn't just about him leaving. It's deeper than that. It's the feeling of having given something sacred and not knowing what to do with the emptiness left behind. Not because she's weak, not because she can't live without him, but because something in her soul recognized something in his. And that kind of recognition doesn't just disappear. The ache of separation isn't always about missing his presence. It's about the echo he left behind in places of you that you didn't even know were open. You wake up and you feel it in your chest, in your stomach, in your skin. The weight of silence that once was laughter, the space in your life where he used to exist. But it's not just him you're missing. You're missing the part of you that came alive in that connection. The part that believed again. The part that hoped again. Because when a soul touches yours, it's not just a memory, it's a mirror. And losing that mirror, even temporarily, can feel like losing yourself. Not entirely, but enough to question, who am I now, without what we shared? And the truth is, the pain of emotional disconnection often cuts deeper than physical distance ever could. You can be in the same city and feel oceans apart. You can be in the same room and still ache for closeness that's no longer there. You gave your heart without conditions. You showed up fully. You believed. And even if things ended without clarity, even if he disappeared into silence, your love wasn't wasted. It was real. It was yours. And what you felt, what you still feel, is not foolishness. It's proof that you have the capacity to love with depth, to open even when you've been hurt before. That's not weakness. That's sacred strength. But now, the emptiness left behind is asking you for something. Not to go back, not to cling, but to remember who you were before the ache. To see yourself, not through the eyes of absence, but through the eyes of your own presence. You are not what was left. You are what remains, what chooses to feel, even when it hurts, what dares to believe, even when the story didn't end the way your heart had hoped. And maybe that's where healing begins, not in forgetting him, but in remembering you. Some people stay with us, even after they leave, not because we're clinging, Not because we can't let go, but because something deeper happened. A shift, a spark, a recognition that left fingerprints on our soul. And no matter how much time passes, no matter how many miles stretch between you, they're still there, in the songs, in the scents, in the spaces between your thoughts. But why do some connections linger, while others fade like smoke? It's not about the intensity, it's about the depth. Some people don't just touch your life, they awaken parts of you that had been sleeping, and once those parts are stirred, you can't unfeel them. You can't unknow what it felt like to be fully seen, fully met, fully moved. It's easy to confuse this with attachment, to think, if I still feel him, it must mean I haven't healed. But not all lingering is unhealthy. Some of it is sacred, because when a soul mirrors yours, it reveals both your beauty and your brokenness. It shows you where you shine and where you still ache. That's not a weakness. That's a gift. Louise reminds us, every person is a mirror reflecting a part of ourselves. And some mirrors reflect the light we forgot we carried. You might wonder why he's still in your thoughts. Why, even after months or years, his name still causes something to flutter inside. But maybe the question isn't, why can't I forget him? Maybe the question is, what did his presence awaken in me that I'm still learning to embrace? Because some people don't stay to be with us. They stay to transform us. They stay to teach, to stir, to uncover. He might have brought you closer to your softness, to your truth, to your longing for something real. That kind of awakening doesn't just vanish when the person walks away. It lingers, not as a wound, but as a reminder, a spiritual thread that connects you not only to him, but to a part of yourself that you're meant to reclaim. So if you still feel him, if you still remember, that's not a failure. It's an invitation to look inward, not outward. To ask yourself, what part of me was reflected through him? What am I still holding? And what is it trying to show me? Because the thread isn't always there to tie you to him. Sometimes it's there to lead you back to you. There's a subtle but powerful difference between waiting and trusting. One drains you, the other feeds you. One feels like standing still, holding your breath, hoping he comes back to save what was lost. The other feels like breathing deeper into yourself, knowing that what is meant for your soul will find its way, without you having to beg for it. Waiting often feels like abandonment, not by him, but by yourself. You put your life on pause, quietly telling your heart, I'll start again when he returns. But time isn't asking you to wait. It's asking you to live, to trust, to grow into the version of yourself that doesn't need his presence to feel whole. Because love, real love, never asks you to suffer in exchange for the promise of maybe. There's a divine rhythm to everything, a timing that moves not by force, but by faith. And when a connection is real, when two souls are truly meant to meet, no amount of distance, no stretch of silence, no passing of time can erase what is sacred. But what's sacred doesn't need to be clutched. It needs to be honored. And honoring love means not making yourself small while waiting for someone else to become ready. Sometimes, the most powerful act of love is releasing the need to know how or when, trusting that if he is yours in truth, life will make a way, not through suffering, not through sacrifice, but through alignment, through peace, through readiness on both sides. And while you wait, if you must call it that, let it not be a waiting that withers you. Let it be a becoming, a season where you pour into yourself, where you tend to the garden of your soul, knowing that love doesn't return because you cried hard enough. It returns when it recognizes the woman you've become. So breathe, soften, grow, trust the unfolding, even when it doesn't look like the story your heart wrote. Because maybe the story life is writing for you is far more beautiful than the one you were waiting for. There's a particular ache that lingers when you weren't chosen, not because you weren't worthy, but because someone else didn't see what you so deeply offered. And that sting, that silent grief of being overlooked, can burrow into the heart like a quiet shame. It whispers lies, that you weren't enough, that maybe you loved too much, that maybe you should stop believing. But let's be honest, the pain isn't just about him not choosing you. The deeper pain is that somewhere along the way, you stopped choosing yourself. You waited to be seen, forgetting that your own eyes are sacred mirrors too. You waited to be wanted, forgetting that your own hands can hold the softness you were hoping he would return to. And in that waiting, something sacred in you was set aside. The woman who gives and gives, hoping one day someone will finally see her. She forgets that her worth was never dependent on being chosen. It was always there. It was always enough. But it takes a quiet kind of courage to remember. To stand in front of the mirror and say, I don't need him to come back for me to come back to myself. Because the moment you choose yourself, not as a defense, not out of bitterness, but out of deep reverence for the woman you are becoming, the universe shifts. Things begin to return to you. Not just love, but clarity, direction, energy, and yes, sometimes, even the one who once left. But the beauty is, by then, you won't need him. You'll be whole enough to choose, not from longing, but from sovereignty. There's a power in reclaiming yourself, in walking back into your own heart after giving so much of it away. And when you do, something miraculous happens. You stop begging life to deliver what you thought you needed, and instead, you start attracting what truly belongs to you, not because you chased it, but because you became it. Choosing yourself isn't about building walls. It's about planting roots, deep, sacred, unshakable roots that remind you were never waiting to be saved. You were waiting to be remembered. There's a kind of love that doesn't come to complete you. It comes to expand you. It doesn't fill your empty spaces, but instead, it shines a light on all the places you've yet to meet within yourself. When a true soulmate crosses your path, it's not always about staying forever. Sometimes, it's about awakening, about inviting you into a deeper relationship with your own soul. At first, it feels like magic, like recognition, like you've finally come home. But very quickly, something else begins. A stirring, a deep, often uncomfortable reflection of your own shadows, your longings, your fears. That's what soulmate love does. It doesn't just comfort, it reveals. It doesn't just soothe, it challenges. It cracks you open, not to break you, but to birth you. You begin to feel things more deeply, speak more truthfully, notice your patterns, your wounds, your old survival stories. Not because he's perfect or because the relationship is flawless, but because it touches something ancient in you, a knowing, a memory of who you're here to become. And even if the love fades or the paths diverge, that awakening stays, that expansion lingers. You start to realize that he wasn't just a partner, he was a portal, a mirror through which your own transformation could begin. You may not have chosen this journey consciously, you may not have asked for it, but now that it's begun, you can't return to who you were before him. You've outgrown the old skin, the old silences, the old ways you once made yourself smaller to fit into someone else's idea of love. This kind of love, the kind that cracks you wide open, it's sacred, even in its ending, even in its absence, because it taught you, it stretched you, it made you confront yourself, and in doing so, it reminded you of what you're truly made of. So let the expansion continue. Let the soul stretching stay. Whether he's still by your side, or just a name that lives in your prayers, remember this. He may have awakened something in you, but it is you who must continue the journey. You who must carry the light he helped uncover. And in that light, you become the love you were seeking. There's a question that lingers long after the goodbye. If he was really my soulmate, why did he leave? It haunts quiet mornings, echoes in empty rooms, and tugs at the heart like a thread that refuses to break. It's a question layered with longing, confusion, and a deep desire to make sense of something that felt destined, but didn't last. But not every soulmate is meant to stay. Some are meant to stir, to initiate, to open you up to a path you couldn't walk until you met them. The love was real, the connection, undeniable, but its purpose wasn't permanence. It was transformation, and transformation is rarely gentle. It comes like a fire, fierce, purifying, sacred. It burns away the illusions, the old versions of yourself, the places you were still asleep. He may have left, but what he awakened in you is still here. That tenderness, that capacity to love without conditions, that willingness to see the soul beneath the surface, that wasn't his gift to you. That was your gift to him. And now, it's the gift you must give to yourself. Louise Hay would remind you, I am willing to release the need for this person. I trust that all is in divine order. These aren't just comforting words, they are medicine. Because holding on to someone who's not meant to walk with you anymore is a kind of quiet betrayal to the woman you are becoming, and your becoming deserves loyalty. What if his leaving wasn't a loss, but a release? A sacred clearing that made room for you to meet yourself more fully? What if he was never meant to stay, but only to touch your soul long enough for you to remember your own light. That doesn't make the pain less real, but it does make it sacred, because the soul doesn't measure love in years or outcomes. It measures in awakenings, and sometimes the one who broke your heart also broke it open. Even if he's gone, something in you stayed. Something in you remains, not in the form of longing, but in the quiet evolution that happened because you dared to love him. It's not about the relationship anymore. It's about the woman you became through the journey of loving him, because while he may have walked away, the version of you that awakened in that love didn't leave. That version of you, the one who felt more deeply, spoke more honestly, trusted more fully, she still lives within you. She may feel quieter now, a little more cautious, a little more guarded, but she's still here. And maybe, just maybe, she's the truest version you've ever known. It's tempting to believe he changed you, that his presence, or his absence, made you who you are now. But look closer. It wasn't him. It was you. It was the way you loved, the way you showed up, the way you peeled back layers of your heart, even when it was terrifying. That love came from within you, and that means it still belongs to you. You didn't lose yourself in him. You found a part of yourself through him, a part that had been waiting for expression, waiting to be remembered. That part isn't gone. It's grown. It's wiser now. It knows the difference between love that lifts and love that drains, between presence that heals and presence that confuses. So don't mourn just the man. Acknowledge the gift of the mirror he held up, and hold on to the woman who looked back, because she is still here, stronger, softer, clearer. She is the treasure that love awakened, and nothing, not time, not silence, not his absence, can take that away from you, because the real soulmate isn't the one who stayed. It's the one you became when you chose to love without losing your soul. Sometimes the universe writes stories we didn't see coming. It opens a door, only to close it again. And yet, something about that connection refuses to fully fade. You move on. You grow. You breathe deeper than before. But still, there are moments when a song, a smell, a dream brings his presence back, not as a craving, but as a memory, a vibration, a quiet knowing that something between you was never truly finished. And maybe it's not meant to be finished. Maybe it's meant to evolve. Because real soul connections don't always end. They transform. They shift from romance into remembrance, from longing into alignment, from needing him to choosing you. And sometimes, after all that, they return, but never in the same shape, never to the same version of you, because you are no longer the woman who waited. You are the woman who walked herself home. If the universe brings him back, it won't be to rescue you. It won't be to make right what went wrong. It will be because something in both of you has shifted, matured, deepened. The healing has been done. The lessons have been honored. And only then can the love return as a gift, not a test. But here's the truth. The reunion is not the reward. The reward is who you became while learning to live without him. The reunion, if it comes, is just the reflection of your wholeness, not the source of it. Because when a woman reclaims her soul, when she no longer defines her worth by who stays or leaves, she becomes magnetic, not to attention, but to truth, to purpose, to the kind of love that no longer needs proof. And so, if he returns, it will be because love has matured, because both hearts have outgrown their wounds, because what once needed fixing now stands ready to be shared, not as a half and a half, but as two wholes, meeting again, not to complete each other, but to continue the sacred work they began. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the letting go becomes an act of grace, not grief, when you realize that holding on is not proof of love, but resistance to growth, and that surrender, true surrender, isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering what's sacred, even in the absence, even in the silence. Sit with that for a moment. Let your heart feel the weight of everything you carried, the hope, the ache, the stories you whispered into your pillow at night, and now, slowly, let it go, not as a punishment, not as a final goodbye, but as a sacred release, a way of saying, I honor what we had, and I release what no longer serves. There's a soul prayer for this moment. Not the kind spoken loudly, but the kind whispered from the center of your being. If he was meant for me, love will bring him in truth, but I no longer need him to feel whole. And as those words leave your lips, something in you exhales, a burden lifts, a space opens, because real love doesn't chain, it frees. It teaches you how to stand alone without feeling lonely, how to remember your own beauty, even when no one is watching, how to choose peace over proof. And when that kind of love returns, it comes not to rescue, but to reflect, to remind you of the light you carried all along. Marianne Williamson speaks to this mystery. When love is real, it returns, or it releases you completely. And either way, you are blessed. Either way, you are whole. Because love was never lost. It only changed form. It only did what real love always does. It grew you. So let the prayer live in your breath. Let the release be your offering. And trust, deeply, that nothing sacred is ever truly taken. It is only transformed. When love is real, it doesn't disappear. It doesn't vanish with time or fade with distance. It transforms. It deepens. It becomes a quiet presence within you. Not a weight, but a warmth. Not a wound, but a whisper. It teaches you that what's meant for your soul will never truly be lost. It will either return, or it will return you to yourself. Louise Hay once said, "Love is never lost. If not reciprocated, it will flow back and soften and purify the heart." And maybe that's the miracle, that even love not returned still blesses us, still shapes us, still calls us back into our own arms, more whole than before. Because when you let go of needing someone to complete you, you become a vessel for something far greater, the kind of love that nourishes without demanding, that holds without clinging, that heals without needing anything in return. You no longer have to carry absence as sorrow. You can carry it as sacred space, a place inside you where truth was touched, where beauty was born. And if he was truly your soulmate, not by fantasy, but by soul recognition, then time and space are no threat. What was planted in truth cannot be erased by silence. It simply waits, grows, evolves, and maybe returns. But even if it doesn't, you are not without. You are not unfinished. You are not forgotten. Because you remembered. You remembered yourself. And that is the greatest love story of all. Marianne Williamson reminds us, the true miracle is not that he comes back. The miracle is that you have loved so deeply that even absence couldn't break you, that you rose, that you stood, that you became the soul no one could ever walk away from again. And if this video found you today, maybe it's because your heart was ready to hear what your soul has always known. If this touched something inside you, you are invited to subscribe and continue this path of inner remembering. And right here on your screen, there's another video waiting, one that continues this journey of reclaiming your light, your voice, and your sacred worth. Click and walk with me a little further. You are not alone.